Hello, welcome back. In this session, we are going to enhance our scripted calculation view which we created in our previous lesson by using input parameters. So by using input parameters, it will become dynamic to select the tax value. So let's see how it's going to work. So here is our scripted calculation view which we created earlier in our earlier lesson. And this is the result of that scripted calculation view. Now instead of making this tax value as 10, so I would like to make it dynamic. So for that we have an option to give input parameter. So if you compare this scripted calculation view with the stored procedure, input parameter is going to be the in parameter and columns is going to be the out with table type. Okay. So let's create new input parameter. I'll make this parameter as tax. Okay, I'll give the label also tax, and here it's going to be constant. Okay, it's a direct type, so we have multiple options, so we'll use direct type. And constant, I'll say 10, and we don't have any semantics to this. We'll use integer. Maybe we can use integer 10, 15, 20 or something like that. Okay, so we'll use integer, and these options are not required. Let's use the tax. Okay, now we have tax input parameter is created. So how to map this tax parameter? So it's same like our previous examples which we saw in stored procedure. Just use colon and then put the value tax. Okay, now if you observe this tax, we made this is mandatory. We selected that, like by default it is selected, and we are going with the same option. Okay, let's activate this. Okay, successfully activated. Now I'm going to run this view. So when you run this calculation view which is having input parameters or variable something, so it will give a screen to choose the values. So tax, so it is 10, and I can change it to 15, 20, something like that. If you observe here, there is a star mark, so that star means it is mandatory. So it's coming from the BWBEX variables, like similar to the BWBEX variables. There if you have a star, it is mandatory, and selection type is single. You can give only one value. So I'll execute that, and I got the same values what we have previously, but this time we have a feasibility to change the value. Okay, let's refresh and change it to some 20%. So 20% we have. Okay, let's refresh. By default, the default value we mentioned 10. That's why when you refresh, automatically it gets 10. So I'll make it minus 20. So we get an error because in our function we maintained a exception logic. So column store error, such column store. Okay. Okay, here user defined error exception. If you see here, user defined error exception, discount value minus 20 must be greater than 0. So that's the user defined, that's the exception message which we maintained in function. So that's why it is not going to accept negative values. Okay, that's good. Let's refresh, and 10. Okay, so now even if I want to further make it dynamic, like from tab to, so now we are getting all the regions, but I would like to restrict based on region, where region underscore name is equal to, I'll make a region parameter, and I'll create here, create new parameter, region, and So parameter this time, instead of direct, I will use column. Okay, and refer. So this is the view or table name which we are creating sales report, and select the region name. Okay, so we are expecting the column values should come from this column. Okay, this time we are going to remove this is mandatory option. So we can see the difference of mandatory and not mandatory. So okay, when we remove the mandatory option, then we need to give some default value, specify a default value for the input parameter. Okay, let's go with constant, and here we'll give Americas as a region. Okay, okay, so now we created a region and we used in where class. So let's activate it. So it's activated successfully. Then go with, okay, 10 Americas. We'll go. So here you can see the star mark is not enabled for region. Okay, so I'll go with default options. So I got Americas and a discount value for 10%. Okay, now if I refresh this and I give columns, right? So here column store search error, instantiation of failed exception, undefined variable region, variable marked as required but not set in the query. Variable is marked as required. Okay, let me close this and rerun. Okay, we are getting same error. So let me modify this. Region. So instead of view, I'll select the table itself. Region and region name. Okay, activate. Okay, so that view, when we are clicking on this function, it's not getting execute because we are using the same view which we are working on. So if you want to do a column option on the input parameter, use some other view or any persistent table, not the existing view which you are working. Okay, so in that case you will get all the values. Okay, now I'll go with Asia, select OK. Then I got the Asia results with the discount. Okay, so let me modify this region and I'll make it mandatory, and again I'll go back to the okay, sales report, right? Sales report and region name, I make it mandatory, and I'm going to remove this. Okay, activate data preview. So here we don't have default value, and if I see no values found, because we are using the same view which is not yet executed, so it will not show any results. That's the reason I'm saying you need to use some other view which can execute when you click on this function, or you can use table. So table is recommended to use. If the table is going to have so many values, then use a view to get the distinct values. Okay, so we'll change it again. Region, and from the region we'll use region name. activate. Okay, here you can give any name, Australia. Let's go with let's go to the different semantics of this view. So here the region name and product name are enabled with dimension type, and these are measure types, and aggregation is sum. Okay, so if you go to view property, here you can see data category, by default it's cube, so we have one option cube, and run with, so as we discussed in procedures, definer, invoker, so these are the two options. So here it defaultly taken definer, and if you want to change to invoker, you can change it to invoker. So it's always good practice to change it to invoker. Okay, and this is our view name, and yeah, so classical analytics, this is security option, we don't need to bother about it. Okay, so I activated invoker rights. Okay, so that's all about calculation views, scripted calculation view. See you in the next session. Until then, happy learning. Bye.